I really don't like to talk about the film before you see it, because you start saying all kinds of things and it's not so exciting. You don't go to a movie and know the whole movie before. So just a few words to tell you that this is part of a series of films that I've done since 2010. And I'm working on the sixth one now, which is Jordan's Principle. And after that one is done, the film board is going to make a box with the 6 films in it. And for teaching, it's going to be very interesting. This film is a great gift to me and my life, because it is the 50th film that I made. And I never thought that in my life I would come to have such a gift to be able to make a film like that. Norway House is a very special place, and I've been going there since 2010, in and out, and I met with leadership and so much love in that community, and so much knowledge that I think this film is an example not only for our communities, but for all learning places. That's all I'm saying. After I'll be here and we can make up stories and tell you all the secrets. Thank you.
They had a residential school on the reserve too, in the, I guess, in the 60s and 40s. Yeah.
So they would have to go live in the residential school.
They had one at the reserve level, and a lot of them, I think it went up to grade 8. Then they had to move to different parts in the prairies where they had other residential school that went, where they could live, and they would go to school in the town, like she explained. You know, they had a residence where all the kids stayed and slept there and worked there. They had to, they learned how to sew, so they sewed all the costumes. They learned how to clean up. They kept the residential school up to where it should be. It was all the kids doing it, working. They work a half a day at first and went to school a half a day. Little kids, you know, peeling potatoes in the cellar, and at the age of 8, that's how it was.
And they split them up, they sent them to different residential schools.
Yes.
So they might not be with family, they might be...
They were separate. Even when they went to the same school, boys and girls, they weren't allowed to speak to each other. They were punished if they were caught just waving at a sister or a brother. And they separated them more often than not, so that they didn't know where each other went to. And if they were in the same school, they couldn't even wave at each other. This is sick people running these schools. Yeah.
When did the schools finally close?
The last one, I think, I don't want to say for sure, but I think 2000 and something. Yeah.
When you were doing the research on Norway House, what were some of the more, what stuck out for you, what stuck in your mind about
Norway House is, you see what the film is. I just thought this was the best example, especially the school and the mind behind the school. You know, when the principal said, we figure we had 200 students in grade 9, and then 10, 11, 12, it was going down. And every year we had maybe 15 people graduating in grade 12. And she says, we identified that as a problem. So they didn't punish the children, they said, it's our problem. And this is when they make a new rule. They have a bus at 8 o'clock, 8:30. They added 2 more buses, 9, 9:30. 2 is, they, you know, she said you can't get them up in the morning. Teenagers always want to stay in bed long. And she says, and we told the parents who prefer to see them late than not see them at all. So just that alone, and, this film is shown everywhere in Canada, and I've had people standing in the audience saying, my son, if he arrived in school 10 minutes late, the door was locked, you go back home and now you're punished because you're missing a day's school. It's the attitude and the soul of the people of Norway House that is so much higher than these kinds of rules where kids get punished for everything. And the idea that they want to service the children and make them feel good in school and happy, and that's what happens there. You go to that school, even the lights, the hallways, the ceiling is windows. So, there's a beautiful light in there. Is this gin?
I was hoping for vodka.
So it's such a special place, and I want the whole world to know about this beautiful place, and it's the mind of the people. And when she explained, another teacher says in each classroom there's a child or maybe two that needs special needs. Maybe some are autistic, they have other problems. And when I was there one day in one of the classrooms, I'm telling you, I had tears in my eyes from being so happy. It doesn't make sense, it felt like that. I see this boy that I don't know what this problem was, but obviously perhaps he was autistic and walked, couldn't walk like the others. And I was just sitting there watching. And I see this little girl, she gets up from her desk. She goes over to that boy, she takes his hand and walks him to his desk. That girl might have been 7 years old. It's so beautiful. I tell you this and I just think, my God, that's real love. That's real, and this is, the children imitate their parents. That's because the parents have such a great heart and so much love for each other that the children do the same. Their behavior, you can feel the family. You can feel the help and the protection for each other. And I really wanted the audience to feel that, because I've been in a lot of schools. Before making films, I was singing for the same reason. And I did hundreds of schools in Canada, across the country, some in the States and some in Europe. I've never seen a school like this one. And there will be others, because it's a beautiful example. And with all the fighting that we've had to do to get proper education, to get those bloody books out of the classroom that was teaching the history of Canada, that we were savages, that we went around scalping people and all that shit. So finally these books are out, and now in many places, many provinces are writing new curriculum. And not only that, but in a lot of areas, the people are writing their own books about their own ways of educating, their culture, their language, their tradition. So it's a very different time and a very different place now in the classroom everywhere in the country. And I am very impressed, and many of the reservations, especially those who are in isolated places up north, which never get the same amount of money as the others. They can't hire teacher and pay them properly. People who go there to teach have to take a low salary, and all those things that is unjust and is not equal as to the others. And many of the subjects are not taught in a lot of these schools because they don't have enough money. They don't have a science class, maybe. They don't have what you see in the South or in East for all the schools. So the discrimination and the funds are much lower, and our people, especially in these places, don't get the service that they should. But it's changing now. Why? Because you had strong people across the country that have fought against this, and there's been court cases. I follow all of this in court. I don't know if some of you might have seen We Can't Make the Same Mistake Twice. You see exactly what happened at the Tribunal of Human Rights, and They won their case, and the government was ordered to make changes. And although they won, you say, what did they win? No change, no nothing. Well, the fight continues, and you should see the difference now, what's happening. It's very different. Even government people looks good. You know, it's like it's a new time, and the help is coming to the people, and justice is coming. So it's just extraordinary. I'm so happy that I'm still alive. I'm 86 years old, and I can see this. So can you. Yeah.
Did you go out on that canoe trip with those?
Of course.
How
How do you think about how could we, how could I document this sitting at home watching TV?
Were you paddling?
I had such a bad cold. We were sleeping I had this little tent. And when I'm talking to the kids, you know, when they are all saying why they're on this trip, I sound like an old bear. I thought, oh my God, I thought this is awful. But that's the way it was. Oh yeah, I was there the whole time. Yes?
Just wondering if there was much objection in Norway House to the traditional ceremonies like the wedding ceremony and the Sundance?
The Sundance it was the first time that the Sundance came back to Norway House that year. And I was told I could film the Sundance. I was very touched by that. But as you can see, I only filmed from far away, didn't do any ceremonies. But I wanted the children, the young people, to know that it's there for them. And instead of going to drug or alcohol, come to the ceremonies, come to traditions. This is where the real healing comes from. And this is the reason I filmed it, but nothing close. As you can see, it's far away and it's dark, and you hear the voices talking. And it's very rich in terms of what's there, what's happening. And that's the reason.
But there's some people in the community who object?
No.
No,
Oh no, I think it was the contrary.
Really?
Because all of this is the voice. You hear me talking about what the Sundance is, but you also see what it's doing at the end. You see people just hugging each other, and you know, it's beautiful. But I didn't go into which I think is sacred, and also my main reason is like in the 60s. Don't forget we became Canadian citizen in 1960, not before. And this is when we start to organize, and you called us activists and troublemakers. All of us got together all across the country, and we start fighting, and it became quite different. And at the time, I remember we had meetings with elderly people. And in my case, they were very worried that I might come and take pictures of sacred things. And people were saying, if you do that, then you take away the spirit of that culture, and it might die on you, or you might, it's not a good idea. And I promised I would never do that unless they themselves ask me and say, do it. And this is the reason I felt it was important that young people know that they have the Sundance back. But I was very discreet. And the reason why I accept to do that part, because I want young people to see how precious that is. And it really belongs to them, and that's where they should go, not to drug and not to alcohol. Vodka and gin. So I feel very good about it, because a lot of people have no clue about the Sundance, and it was so banished that for a period there was hardly anything going unless it was underground, secret. So now a lot of people are so wanting to have it, to be part of it. Even some nations where they never had it, it wasn't part of their culture. But they want to adopt it, or they see what it does to people.
Does anybody have any questions they want Alanis? Oh, you had the chance.
You want to dance?
I wish I could step dance like some of those
Yeah,
kids.
yeah. Well, they're wonderful. Yes.
They're amazing. To see them have so many fiddles in one class,
Yeah.
in one school.
What they have, the equipment, the musical violins and guitar, they have the top. It's such a beautiful place. I say to people, children in Norway House are kings. They get the best service. They get to feel good about who they are. They get to belong, and no bully, no nothing like that in that school. It's just so. I wish every reserve would have this.
What brought you to Norway House?
Huh?
What brought you to Norway House to begin with?
Was Jordan's principal. I went the first time in 2010, and I started covering, and I also did a lot of filming in James Bay on the Ontario side. So now I'm finishing Jordan's Principle, and that's going to be the 6th film. And the film board is going to make a box with all the 6 films in it, especially for schools, for education. It's going to, because they're all connected. And the first one I made was the people of the Katawapiskat River in, they call it Atawapiskat, but the real name is Katawapiskat. And while I was there, first I started working on the school, because there they were fighting to get a proper school, because they were teaching in mobile houses. And while I was doing this film, the housing crisis occurred. And I could see all the trouble. It was just awful. So I put that film aside, and I made the first one, which was the Katawapiskat River, people of the Katawa. And then after that, I went back to the first film I started, which is called Hi Ho Mistahe. And it's about getting proper education and getting a new school. And then the third one, I made Trick or Treaty, which has to do with Treaty Number 9 in the James Bay area, and partly some people in Manitoba. And then after that, what did I do? I made We Can't Make the Same Mistake Twice. And then this film. And now I'm going to finish Jordan's Principal film. So that'll be 6 films. But for teachers, it's going to be fantastic, because it's like A, B, C, D, and you see what's happening and how strong the people are and how beautiful the people are. They just don't have a clue how beautiful they are. So, when you see all this, then their minds and how they function, and they survive horrible things in their own country. And this is part of our history. And how do you know where to go when you don't know where you've been? Our history is very precious, very important for our students, for our children to learn who they are and where they belong.
And what's happened.
Yes, yeah. That's how you understand.
In the, I come from Six Nations, and I live on Mississauga Credit, and they have movie nights, and New Credit had theirs on Trick or Treaty,
Yeah,
and then Six Nations is having theirs in December, showing the movie.
yeah.
Trick or Treaty.
In general, you talk to Canadians, treaties, they laugh at you. What's a treaty? It's finished, it's dead, it's not true. It affects people's life every day. And I thought people have to understand what a treaty is, and that's for all people in this country. And I think for teaching, it's a very important document, because you really understand and you see how crooked it was, and how they cheated our people, and how they lied, and it's still very much part of the law. There's a judge that said, take Treaty Number 9 is the best example. What was written is not what they told the people when they were translating, and they told them lies and something very different. And as part of the court case, not necessarily on number 9, but another treaty, the judge said, what those commissioners told the indigenous people is what is the right of those people, not what is written, because it is live. And it's today still the people have a right to be compensated and to get back some land. And right now, that's what we're talking about. And you know, since the 1960, for the first time when we were Canadians, all of a sudden, the government said that people of different nations could write, there was an office in Indian Affairs, could write and identify their territories for the first time. So many people, it's what they call land claims, and the land claims is the government language. And I remember when we were belonging to new organization, they'd say, don't use the word land claim. What's this? You're claiming it's your land? Like you're lying? You say land rights, you don't say land claim. And we developed a whole new way of expressing ourselves from people who were, who had wisdom and understood the whole situation. So now what the government has done, which I'm sure that some of you know about it, they've tried to renegotiate the old treaties in different parts of Canada. And when you talk about BC, Ontario, the prairies, that's where all the treaties are. In Quebec, there were never any treaties, any crown treaties. Why? Because first who came to Quebec were the French people. And the French people, their feeling was, they didn't have to make treaties. They said, we conquer, it's our country. They conquered us, so now it's a French country. And then by the time the English came in Canada, when it came to Quebec, they came after the French. And this is the reason that there's no treaty in Quebec. There's one treaty, and it was made with the province during the James Bay Dam in the 70s. So it's there's 11 treaties with the king or the queen. It's very important that the children that in school learn about this. And the cheating and the lies are still, today, they have to account for that. And even a judge said, it's what you have told those people you've lied. This is what the people go by, what they heard, what they were told. And this is, you can go to court and so in some areas, the renegotiating is being very successful, others not. Again, it depends on the leadership and how, have you got lawyers and who's defending, who's taking on these cases. I'm sure I won't be here then, but treaty number 9 is going to be renegotiated, and it's going to be a very different story.
Well, they found the commissioner's diaries.
Yeah. Can you imagine by chance? It's the students who found the diary at Queen's. Was doing research on something else, and he came upon this diary from one of the commissioners. And that changes the whole thing because it's like a proof. Yeah, it's written. Yeah.
They wrote what they told people?
There was 3 commissioners that came to, for instance, for treaty number 9, Duncan Scott was one of them, the worst one, and Stewart was a miner. And Stewart, Scott, and what's the name of the third one? I forget. Anyway, one of them wrote his diary every day. He was writing what they were saying to the people, what was the reaction, everything. But nobody knew about it. And just, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, a student was doing research at Queen's and came upon this diary. And it's very well written, and you can read it easy. So that also was a good tool for the people to say, look, yeah. And the commissioner, especially Duncan Scott, because when they came by in their canoe by the Albany Reserve there, and they went to Lac Seul in Ontario, and they hear the drum. Some medicine person was having a ceremony, and they were playing the drum, and they were singing. And Duncan, Scott, the commissioner, was furious. So he wanted to scare them and give them a good lesson, and said that if they continue, instead of doing this ceremony, they should have been at the Hudson Bay Post to listen to these creeps, and that they would be punished if they don't promise never to touch the drum again and not have these ceremonies, because this was Satan stuff. So imagine what it was like. And now it's proven, it's all written, and it's, it's more than even oral history. Those are the things, like when you go to school is very important. Education is very important. But if you sit in the classroom and you're taught things that you should hate a certain people, and you should be so terrible to other people, that's a very dangerous place to be, where it should be the opposite. So the curriculums are changing, and a lot of teachers, even, look, I attended a meeting in Toronto. There was 500 teachers from the university level for 3 days, and all they were doing, asking us to help them in terms of books, in terms of history, in terms of the different nations and languages, what could we do to help them, the people of different nations. So that's very new. And a lot of teachers have refused to teach some of these things that they know is racist and is bad.
In Quebec?
The last of the Mohican. Last September, when they came out with the new curriculum, there was nothing about Indigenous people. Whereas in Ontario, I was very impressed by what they were doing to really have a strong curriculum and strong presence of Indigenous culture, language, history. But this new mayor in Toronto has stopped that,
Oh.
But yeah, and yes. But I've had conversation with a lot of teachers, and they can do many things on their own. When they're back in the classroom, if they believed in something, they're right there. A lot of people are doing their own decision on that. But Quebec is the last, but I have confidence that it's changing. It's going to be different, maybe next year, I hope. Or they're starting to identify the land issue. Like all over the country, many people, when they come to speak, they say, we are on this territory of the Ojibwe or Mohawk or whatever. And Quebec, there was not something, some people who have a lot of power told me, I'll never do that. But now you see it, the mayor or different people are starting to acknowledge the territory. Montreal is Kanien'kehá:ka Mohawk territory, and they're starting, it's late, but I have confidence that it will get there.
It has to start somewhere.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I almost feel like it's a bit of a snowball. Like once you break the ice,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
say those first things, and you
Yeah.
see those first
Yeah.
things, they might
Yeah.
seem at first like a bit
yeah,
kind of like, oh yeah, it's just lip service, but it's
yeah,
a way to start.
yeah, it's changing. I tell you, I've seen so much change. And I really think that at this time, of course, the reconciliation had a lot to do with it. And I feel, and I know that I would say in general, Canadians wants to see justice to the people. I see that the ear of the Canadians is incredible now. 10 years ago, no interest. What's that treaty? Well, stop complaining. Indians are always complaining. That's the kind of attitude. But now it's changing everywhere. And it's really wonderful for our people to be finally respected and listened to. Very new, but very wonderful. And I think there's a lot of good people everywhere. I can say for myself in my life, I've had a horrible life as a child. I got beat up all the time, and it was just awful. But, and I feel that I was in danger many, many times. there was always somebody that came and helped me or protected me. And most of the time, it was a white person. And I want to recognize that. And I feel that somehow I've been helped and I've been protected. And this is why I don't want to loaf around. I feel I owe to life for everything that was given to me. And as long as I'm healthy, I'm going to be working for our people and for children in particular. That's the way I feel, but I really want to recognize the goodwill of a lot of people everywhere. There's good people everywhere. And we must recognize that because we've had so much bad. But imagine, there's a lot of good people and that want to see something else and that are helping us everywhere. And certainly education is the main place. It's so important. So what the power of the teacher is so high, and how they treat their children in the classroom, and how much do you feel part of it? How much do you, I'll give you an example. You know, I go and do master classes in a lot of schools and a lot of university. And but perhaps some of you know this guy. His name is Ezra Winton. He's the head of Cinema Politica. And there are programs all across the country where they show films. And he was teaching at Concordia for a few years. And I went several times to his classroom during the year. And one time he said, oh, come around 4 o'clock, and by then my students will have seen 3 of your films. And he had a large class, like 70 students. So that day, I don't know what for, but I came earlier. And I come in, and I see they're watching a film, the last film, called No Address, which is a film I made in Montreal about our people homeless on the street. So I come in, and I sit with the children, and I start watching. And I hadn't looked at this film for quite a few years. And I see one of the main characters, his name is Thomasy. And I start to cry. I tell you, I couldn't stop crying to save my life. But not just tears, I was sobbing. And it's dark, and I'm with the students. Turn the lights on, the film is finished. I have to go to the front to do the Q&A like this here. Oh, I just could not stop crying. So I went to the front, and I said to the students, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to pretend. I'm just going to tell you how I feel. And so I start talking about Thomasy, and I said, you know, when I saw him, he was an Inuit guy and living on the street in Montreal. And there's a friendship center in Montreal, and every day or so they would make a meal for people on the street. Sometimes it was dinner, sometimes it was lunch. And they would make big kettles of stew or soup, and you know, the place would be packed. And one time I was at the center, and everybody's having, I forget what, I think it was soup. I see Thomasy, I said, Thomasy, aren't you going to eat some soup? He said, oh no. I said, why? He said, did you see how many people here? There's not going to be enough soup. So I'm not going to eat soup. I can walk over to the Salvation Army later, and I'll eat there. And you know, I just, he's such a beautiful person. And you know, people walk on the street, they see an indigenous person or a black person or somebody on the street that's in the hard time, and they're so impatient across the street not to have to look at this person. And I told the students, I said, you know, this young man was so special. I just want you to know you're not looking at just anybody here. This is somebody with a heart who has got nothing, who's living on the street, he's not going to eat because he's going to take it away from another person that's on the street. And so then it was the Q&A. And this young man lifted his hand, and I said, yes. He stood up, and he was very tall. He said, I'm glad you said this. He says, me, I'm autistic. And his words, you know, you could understand him well, but it was perhaps not as regular as we can speak. And he said, every day when I come to the classroom, I'm scared. I said, why? He says, because I can't talk like the other students, and I'm worried they're going to laugh at me, or they're going to ridicule me. So I'm always nervous, and I always feel intimidated. And you know, in the room, I am not exaggerating. I could feel the students looking at him differently, just because of this small experience. And so now other students spoke, and after that I'm just standing at the front, and a lot of kids were lining up and wanted to talk to me closer. And he comes closer, and oh yes, and when he was talking, I said, my God, it's fantastic. I said, do you realize how important you are? I can hear you, we can understand you very well, and you will be speaking for other young people who have those problems and perhaps cannot be understood as well as you. So you're going to be making films about autistic children, people. Do you realize how important you are? And you know, we had a big conversation. So after all this, he comes over and he said, oh, I just want to tell you, my mommy tells me I'm important too. And it was so beautiful, and I could tell the other students would look at him differently now. That when he would walk in, I had a vision that the students are going to hold his hand, make him welcome. And you see how powerful film can be, you know, and how if in the school a teacher that has that power to give love to his students or to her students and to make you feel that you belong there. You're not isolated or looked at differently because perhaps you can't talk as well as the others, all those things. So I feel we have a lot of work to do, and you can see, when you can see the result like this, makes you feel so special. You know, that's what film is about. And I'm very encouraged because all across this country, all indigenous young people want to make films. They all want to do videos. They all want to watch movies, you know. So there's a lot of work being done by our own young people themselves. Are you going to make a film? Yeah? Good thing. Yeah. So, yeah. So all those things are very powerful, and they really bring change, and we start to understand each other and respect each other. So that's what it's about.
I really liked the film, all of it.
Yeah.
There are some things that really stood out, and they're all going in my head. But the one that's standing out right now is when you mention the size of the trees that used to be there, and
Yes,
how
yes.
wide and how tall.
Yeah.
And then you look at the ceremony in the forest that is starting to come up again.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a really powerful image of what was taken
Yeah.
down, and
Yeah,
in spite of that,
Yeah.
everything survived under
Yeah.
the surface.
yes,
It's kind of like the winter's lifting.
yeah. So it's important for young people to feel that and know that, you know. And when Gordon says, our people will be healed, it says it all. And this other film I made, Trick or Treaty, you see hundreds of young people who are so spiritual and who have, some of them have gone close to suicide or have been through drugs and alcohol. The way they talk is so, you hear them and you say, it's going to be all right. When our young people take on the responsibility to help another and to feel that, like there's another, from that I also made a short film for CBC. It's called Walking is Medicine, and you can watch it on your phone or whatever. I think it's the program is called Keep Calm and Decolonize. And this one is only about 5 or 8 minutes long. It's called Walking is Medicine. Please look at it. It's young, just the voice of these young people. You just want to hug them, you know. You just say, oh my God, you know, it's just so beautiful. Yes, sir.
The
So-
experience also of the youth on the canoe trip, that was really moving
Ah.
too. I was actually really privileged to join a group of Cree youth in UESG in Quebec on a 2-week canoe
Yeah,
trip as well. I was actually helping them film it themselves.
yeah,
And they did, it was just exactly the same.
yeah.
And it's so moving, you know, some of these youth have never lifted a paddle in their
Wow.
lives.
Yeah.
And they're going 2 weeks and
Yeah.
they're learning to portage and
Yeah.
it's so profound, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
What I noticed was at the beginning when they were paddling, they're kind of, he said, yeah, the first day they're
Yeah.
tired, the second day they're more tired.
Yeah.
But by the end, you could see that they had become,
Yeah.
you know, their
It's
body
part of them,
movements,
yeah.
they'd become
Yeah.
a team.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really, what cues you, it's what comes from your ancestors. And it's the land, it's the water, all that nature that is so disregarded by a lot of people, and especially by developers, you know, by all that movement. And the more young people identify with that and know what that means, eventually they're going to be saving the land. That's the future. Yeah.
I like the part where they dam apart, and then you even have a picture of the beaver coming up after.
My house.
Oh my, beavers are incredible. Eh? They come back with and they repair, they put it right back on. It's really
You can hear the
interesting.
beaver saying, damn.
Yeah, yeah,
Not again.
yeah. There's another film I made a long time ago, during the James Bay Dam actually, and it's called Amisk, and Amisk in Cree means beaver. And it's always saying only beavers can make dams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've been talking a lot. You have any question, and do you want me to answer?
It's just a comment. It's, you know, when they're doing the canoeing and they're moving, and the man who's organizing this really talks about how movement is important, and it brought me back also to how the indigenous people were people who did move around,
Yeah.
and there was a real
Always
there.
moving.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the strength that came from that.
Yeah.
movement.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
Hmm.
part of it.
Yes.
Part of it, you're not,
Hmm.
a thing that doesn't exist without, we can't exist without it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you see that? There's the movement of the animals, there's the movement of the seasons,
Mhm.
you know, and for the people, that movement.
Mhm.
Well, from the very start of the film, everything's alive, like vibrating,
Mm.
like,
Yeah.
I really like that.
Mm.
Yeah, so many layers also.
Yes. Yeah. It takes time. You know, I was there many times, and then when the Sundance came, that what we filmed is the first time that the Sundance came back to the Cree in that area. You know, it's many generations without, so it was just so special.
I didn't even know that it existed.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the only Sundance I ever heard about was like the festival of art.
Oh, no.
The Sundance Festival. Sundance in Utah with what's his name?
Is it Redford?
Redford, yeah. Huh?
I just was blown away. We actually both were. I know actually Indigenous youth who go to Sundance, but I never thought I'd see what it, because I know it's so sacred and so special. And when I was listening to the music and the different, the audio also, the sounds that people were
Mhm.
making, yeah, we work with people in Chile and Mapuche people who've invited us to ceremony there. It was so similar.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe.
Mapuche, yeah.
Yeah, I
Mm.
couldn't believe the Giatun ceremony,
Yeah.
which is their most sacred
Yeah.
ceremony. I
Yeah.
couldn't believe how similar the beat was.
Yeah.
That there was, it just sort of, yeah, it's sort of so
Mm.
amazing at the other end of the
Mm.
continent.
Yeah.
Very special
Yeah.
to hear that.
So, you know, we look to the future so differently now. I would say the last 10 years, very differently than before. You didn't see so much hope that way, you know, which I think this is much higher than hope. But we live at a very special time now.
I guess, you know, because we've been talking about digital media all day, do you think that maybe 10 years coincides with the sort of access to the content? Because it was
I think,
difficult
you
to-
know, for me, it doesn't matter what the system is. I think you've got to go by the root of things, and digitize or whatever. It can also be very dangerous because it's so quick and it's so could be disrespectful. And I think that it's very important that if you go to a nation or to a community to do whatever it is, you have to explain everything and very well, so that they don't get into something they wake up 6 months later and say, hey, look this, I'm there, and I didn't say that I was in accord. There's all those things. So I think you have to really explain what you're doing, what are you doing, what is it for them, where is their rights. You have releases, you have, you know, there's the whole, don't get excited. You say, oh, we can do this easy, we can digitize, and you're doing all this. Yeah, it might be great in the sense you're communicating and you can do something better, with better quality and easier, but do your first job is to really explain what you're doing and why, and where is their rights, and where is this thing going. Are you going to use this all over the place without having them know? You know, there's all that stuff that, again, you could be overpowering the people by taking or not telling them everything, and this material is in places perhaps they're not going to be happy about it. So it's very important to first, before you start digitizing anything or doing anything, that you explain and you help them how to use the tools, but it's from them, it's their property, it's their voice, it's their language. So I would say the first course is the explanation of what is there for, why you're doing it, what's it going to do to them, how do they feel about having certain things filmed or taped, you know, all that. If you just come and say, look, you can digitize and blah, 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 and everybody gets excited over the tool, but you can have very bad things happening. I would say, if you take on a community, is to really teach them the whole thing and what it does and what for, and show them how to use it and what does it mean in terms of who's going to appropriate that, you know, all those things.
Have you ever had hard questions from people about, you know, whether it's the release form, the language in there?
I am,
thinking of collective
yeah.
cultural knowledge.
I am very severe in the things. I explain everything, and now more than ever I write only for this film. So that even at the board or any place else, somebody come and takes this and use it, and then you know, oops, you're watching a film, you say, oh my God, how come I'm in there? They didn't tell me. You know, like the material can be used in things that you would be very unhappy to be part of. So there's all those things you have to protect the people, and they have to know that. You know.
Well, I want to thank you. You've put in a really and long day with us today. And we sure appreciate it, because I know myself, I've learned a lot, and I'm gonna take away a lot of what you said today, and make sure that we put it into practice in what we're doing. And,
Yes, because if you honest, and if you can make your own rules on how you're going to bring something or teach somebody something. If you're honest and you're doing for the right reason, you're going to be very helpful, and it's going to be fantastic. But first, just remember, it's like going to school, you know. It's each person has been in a private school because it's your life. You're the only one that knows about your life. No teachers, nobody can tell you about your life. That's your private school. It's the same thing for each one of you here. So you have to respect that. And if you're going to take something away from that person has to know why and how and where it's going and all those things. And more, it's important because everybody takes from this, you know, from many different ways of having access to people's life. So this is why you have to be honest and protect the people and show them how to protect themselves.
Thank you. Thank you very much.